We have calculated the dividend payouts for the owners of Chanel since 2017, and that windfall comes up to about $21 billion. So it's very important, it's quite massive, and that 21 billion windfall feeds into the family vehicle, which is called Mousse, and they've invested in different businesses, including notably, for instance, in the US, the fashion brand, the Row.
Oh, interesting. The Row. It is a nice fashion brand. A little out of my bracket most of the time, but we can aspire. But why does this matter? Because Chanel has had a bit of a rough go. I know for a while they really didn't even have an in-house designer. The house of Chanel was making the collections kind of in collaboration. Talk to us about why this is an odd time to be taking out that much money and to pay yourself that big of a dividend. 2025
was a better year for Chanel. They returned to growth after a drop in sales in 2024. Basically, Chanel also suffered the slowdown and then the downturn in demand for luxury goods. You know, after the post-pandemic, there was a boom in luxury goods. People wanted to go out, they wanted to look good, and Chanel enjoyed this. However, there was probably in the last 2 years, there was probably a lack of interest from consumers for Chanel goods because they probably didn't innovate enough. They didn't create products that inspired a lot of desirability.
When you talk about the luxury houses in general, to your point, they have had a slowdown. Part of it is because there was just such that extraordinary growth. And you even have the CEO of Yves Saint Laurent this week saying exactly that the growth was extraordinary but not sustainable, and brands need to work harder at retaining aspirational clients. And to your point, making products that people really want. You know, it strikes me there was this bit of a scandal where it turned out some of the bags were being made very cheaply and the markup was very high. There's been a lot of complaints about the quality of these products and what they're charging them for. Is this kind of a turning point for these houses that they need to get back to basics if they want to save their business model as it is?
Absolutely. I think there was a point where brands in the post-pandemic, they got complacent. They probably thought that the sky was the limit. They could increase prices and not see a repercussion or a backlash from consumers. And that actually, that is what happened at some point when, for instance, in the case of Chanel, a classic flap bag about 2 years ago in Paris, it went above the symbolic 10,000 euro level. And so that obviously makes people think twice. And, you know, it's basically the same product, but I can see that the prices are just going up and up. And analysts, they call this greedflation, and some brands were accused of increasing prices too much compared to other ones. And in this category, I think, you know, people agree to say that Chanel was probably one of them, maybe Dior as well, and others. And in order to gain again the attention from consumers, there was, in the past 2 years, there was a big creative reshuffle among the top fashion brands, whether that's Christian Dior with Jonathan Anderson, of course, Chanel with Mathieu Blazy.
And he used to be at Bottega, right?
Gucci, Demna. Yeah. Sorry?
Sorry, yes, I think he used to be at Bottega, exactly.
He came from Bottega Veneta. Yeah, absolutely. But also Celine and otherwise. So basically, you need to show that you need to increase the value perception of your products, and I think that's what the brands would agree on.
One way to get excitement and get new consumers potentially is these drops we're seeing, these collaborations between higher-end brands and slightly more affordable brands. And I wanted to talk to you about this Swatch collab with this very high-end watch brand that I'm going to let you say because I'm going to mess it up, and I know all the watch nerds are going to come for me, including my brother. But they had these pop swatches that literally caused stampedes and frenzies and stores to have to shut because they couldn't deal with this. What was this, and why was it such a big deal, and do you expect to see more of these?
Absolutely. So it was a collaboration between Swatch, you know, mass watches, you know, a big, you know, democratic watch brand, and then Audemars Piguet. And this is probably the top of the pyramid with Rolex and Patek Philippe. Audemars Piguet, just to give you a sense, they produce about 50,000 watches a year. Wow. Versus Swatch, the brand, they produce 4.4 million watches a year. So you've got a mass brand and then a very exclusive brand. It generated mayhem in the run-up. People were camping outside the stores for a couple of days ahead of the sale, which was on Saturday, the 16th of May, and that was across all over the world. And it was in Swatch, stores. It was in physical stores. It wasn't an online. You couldn't buy them online. And the thing is, as you say, we saw scenes of mayhem, of chaos. Sometimes people being pepper spray because they didn't.
Fights,
really,
they refused to open. Some of the stores didn't even open because they said, we're not engaging in this. We're not opening today. Go home.
I think there was a disappointment in the execution. In the concept, I think it's up for debate. It's probably going to be very positive for Swatch. Swatch, they're suffering because they are it's a mass brand, and the value right now is in the top of the pyramid, so in the exclusive brand. And for Audemars Piguet, Ilaria Ressa, the CEO of Audemars Piguet, she said it's probably going to generate interest again in mechanical watches, which, volumes of mechanical watches have also been falling over the past few years. So that is probably also the positive for Audemars Piguet. But some people will say, actually, Audemars Piguet doesn't need that because it's super exclusive.
Okay.
So we'll have to see in the numbers of Swatch.
And we'll have to see how many people who buy those watches can actually read them, because apparently this is a thing. People can't read analog watches anymore.